And this is video part 2 of using my 2013 iMac with Ubuntu Linux and external GPUs. Now, we've already in the previous video connected the RTX Nvidia 2070 with 8 gigs of RAM to the iMac and got it recognized inside Ubuntu Linux. So now we're going to go ahead and load our AI software and see what we can run. So picking up right where we left off, we saw that we were able to detect the 2070 and the drivers were loaded. So let us actually now go to NVIDIA's website, developer.nvidia.com, the CUDA downloads, because we do need an addition to the display drivers, and that is the CUDA drivers. That's going to allow us to access some of the special processing power of the external GPU for our AI purposes. You can see on the screen, we're just going to install the CUDA toolkit with the commands right on their website. Now it'll install the CUDA drivers, but if you see a little further down the page, there's also the driver installer. Now we already did set a driver that was, I guess, the default that came in this version of Ubuntu, but I'm gonna choose the proprietary kernel drivers from this page instead. It might overwrite the drivers we already have. I don't know 100% that we need that, but this will make sure we have the latest one available from NVIDIA. Okay, let's skip ahead now. The drivers are installed. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what our Ubuntu settings page says. And it has, let's see, it's taking longer to search. It's updating something. It has automatically changed it to 570 proprietary. So let's leave it at that. And we'll continue using that. It says it wants to restart at the bottom, so let's do that. And now we're back in the system and we're going to install our AI software. We're going to use Ollama. You could go to ollama.com and download whatever you need or look at the commands. I'll just type the command right in here. The curl command, downloading the script and then running it in the shell. You might notice though the first time if you run this, you don't have curl installed. So one of these two commands will install curl. Once curl's installed, go ahead and run it again. Get the script, which will automatically install Ollama and start it. In the meantime, we're going to go to ollama.com and look at the models. Now, in previous videos, I just downloaded whatever the latest model was of Llama 3.1, 2, and 3, but we're going to actually look at the parameter sizes in blue. The parameter sizes are not the actual size of the model, but how many parameters the model was trained on, and that will affect the physical size that gets loaded into memory. So speaking of memory, let's look at our statistics. We're going to get our performance monitors running so we can see how the models perform on this older 2013 iMac with an external GPU. Let's get a couple of terminal windows open, and there's a few tools you can use. Some of them are from Nvidia and some of them are in the system. Nvidia SMI, I believe, that has been installed with I think the CUDA toolkit. I'm not sure if it's the driver of the CUDA toolkit. There's also a GPU stat, which is just part of our system. Oh, I need to install it. Oh, actually, I need to install it as an administrator or as a root. So let's do that. Let that install. It's really small. It's not very comprehensive. There's another tool, NVTop. So not installed with the toolkits. So let's go ahead and install that separately. Sudo apt install. I guess we could use snap also, but I'm so used to using apt. So we have NVTop. Let's take a look. NVTop looks a lot better than the NVIDIA SMI. It has a little graph in the middle. Let's take a look at what was the last tool? GPU stat. And that is really small. It is easier to look at though, because there's not a lot of busyness going on. We probably want to have that refresh periodically. So we'll run it again with -I for interval and maybe 3 or 4 seconds. and it'll automatically refresh so we get updated stats on our GPU. And the SMI is not that useful for us compared to NVTop, so let's run that instead. So let's do that and rearrange our windows so we can see everything at once. So let's go back and see which model we want to pull. Let's get the Llama 3.2, the 3 billion parameters. The physical size of that is a 2 gigabyte download. So that's going to probably easily fit in memory. And the video card. So we get to see the 2 gigs fit in the 8 gig video card. Let's shop around for some slightly larger models. We can look at the Llama 3.1. Let's see which one we want. Oh, the other one's almost finished. So as that's finishing, let's download another one. Let us get the 3.1, the 8 billion model, which is a 4.9 gigabyte file. So that's another test. We'll be using more GPU memory, see how it performs, see if there's any other one we want to test. There are so many models to choose from, but we're trying to find one that'll just fit in memory or we could use later when we switch to the larger GPU. So let us look at, actually right at the top of the list. What is this, Gemma 3? That has a number of different parameter size models. So let's choose one of those. The 12 billion model is probably under 12 gigabytes. So let's try it out. And the 12 billion parameter Gemma model is just about 8.1 gigs, so just a little too big for this video card, but not for the next one. All right, everything's downloaded. Let's try one of the models. First, let's look at our statistics. Our CPU and GPU, it's not doing that much. No memory's taken on the GPU. Let's load the 8 billion Llama model, which I think is what is it like? Was it 4 point something gigabytes? So if you take a look at the GPU stats, the red line, which is the memory, is going up. There's some CPU activity there. Our regular memory is not really being taken up, so everything's going into the GPU there. Let's say it's loaded already. Let's give it something to answer. Are you there? Let's see how fast it is. That was pretty fast. If you keep track of it by tokens, you can always use the verbose command and look at the tokens at the end of the work. Let's give it something a little harder to think about. Right, a 500, I spelled word wrong, but it'll figure it out. So it's going just a little faster than normal speech patterns. So that's actually not that bad. So this is the 2070 with 8 gigs of RAM. You can see the GPU processor is actually working pretty hard right now. And so is the CPU, but because the GPU is working hard and everything's in GPU memory, it's actually performing pretty well. Now also keep in mind this is the 2013 iMac with Thunderbolt 1. Even though this is a Thunderbolt 3 enclosure, it's still working as a Thunderbolt 1 enclosure, which means it's probably getting like, was it 5 gigabits per second, not the 40? And it doesn't need that because it's just moving this data back and forth. It's not actually doing graphics. Now let's exit that 8 billion model and load the, let's see which ones do we have here. Let's load the Gemma 3 12 billion model, which was 8.1 gigabytes, and see where it affects our memory, our GPU memory, our system memory, and how the GPU and CPU processors perform. Not sure how long it's going to take to load, but take a look at the chart. It's actually taking memory where the previous Llama 3 was not taking system memory. It is also taking GPU memory, so it looks like it's splitting some of the load. But it already loaded, so let's give it the same question, are you there? And it is taking longer to answer and slower to respond. It responded differently though, because it does have a lot more parameters. So let's give it the same 500-word essay. Let's take a look at the CPU and the GPU processor. So it's answering, but much slower than the smaller model. So when you choose a model, look at your hardware and kind of get a balance between what can load in GPU memory and system memory and how fast your GPU is. Yeah, this is so slow. I don't think we're going to wait for the end. But if you take a look at the GPU, it is not working as hard because it is probably waiting on the data to be transferred back and forth between the GPU and the system RAM. Yeah, let's cancel this. All right, it's time to swap out the GPU, the 2070 for the 4090. So let's stop everything and check and see or verify that we have the 2070. And oh, sorry, caps. Okay, there we go. So we have the 2070 still installed. Let's just hot swap it. Okay, I am hot swapping it, but I don't see anything changing here, but I think the screen froze. So one thing I did notice is even though we have our internal GPU, when we hot swap the external GPU, might get the screen to freeze. So let me go reset everything. If this happens to you, don't freak out. Sometimes if you wait a minute, the screen comes back. And we have restarted with the 4090 with 24 gigs of RAM plugged in. Let's take a quick look. And we see that the 4090 is the GPU recognized in these two graphs. So let's rearrange our screen so we have a similar setup to before. All right, there we go. We got 24 gigs of memory. And let's go back to normal speed and see what we want to run. We want to run the Gemma 3 12 billion parameters. Let that load because it is just over 8 gigabytes. It did not fit in the other GPU's memory. But we have 24 gigs now. So if you look at the 9 gigs are in use, so it looks like everything fit. We don't have a lot of spike in our CPU and our system memory. Our GPU is working a little harder though. And since we have our video in real time, we should be able to see how long it takes to load a prompt. Oh, the prompt is ready. So that wasn't that bad. Let's ask it a question. Are you there? And that was a pretty decent response. Let's give it a bigger question. So this is much faster than the previous GPU on the same iMac, the same 2013 iMac. And this iMac only has, what, 32 gigs of RAM. That's pretty impressive because this is running on Thunderbolt 1 on an eGPU. Look at the GPU performance chart right there. It was pretty much at 100%. So let's find something a little more challenging that'll fit in as much RAM as possible and as much of the graphic card's RAM. So if we look at the list we have now, we have an 8 gigabyte file. Let's get something a little bigger. The Gemma 3 27 billion parameters is 17 gigs. So that'll fit nicely in our 24 gig graphics card. Skipping ahead now. There we go. Let's run it. We got our Gemma 3 downloaded. Let's see how long it takes to load. Meantime, let's look at our statistics for our GPU, CPU, and RAM. You can see the GPU's processor and memory um, are in good use. The CPU is going up a little bit. The memory and swap file of the system is not going up too much. I think everything's going to be done mostly by the GPU. You can see 17.8 gigabytes already taken up in the GPU's RAM. And we're still waiting for the whole model to load into memory though. Of course, it's going to take longer. Seems like the screen froze a little bit. I'd mentioned the screen's freezing before, and I've noticed that sometimes when you're loading a large model, the screen does freeze, but seems to recover if you just wait a little while. And there we go, it's recovered. I'm not gonna skip ahead. I want to see how long it takes to load this. Yeah, it's taking a lot longer. It's like time to just go to the kitchen and grab a cup of coffee or something. Okay, not skipping ahead. There we go, it's loaded. So it wasn't horrible. It was like a minute, minute and a half, if that. Let's ask it a question. I always start with the same question, are you there? Because if it takes a long time, then it's not good. Oh, okay, that responded. It is the much better response than the other ones. Let's give it the same longer question, or similar longer question. And take a look at the memory and the CPU chart. So this is a 17 gig file loaded into GPU memory, and it's responding just a little bit faster than human speech, which is actually pretty good. The GPU is at 100%. System memory and swap are not that bad. The CPU is going back and forth, but it's not pegged. So this is workable. So if you have a 2013 or older iMac that has Thunderbolt 1 with the Apple Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2 adapter, you may actually be able to run large language models with decent performance with an external GPU. And you can start with a cheaper one like the 2070 with like 200, 300, 400, 500 bucks, depending on the condition. The other one, the 4090, was like 2000. However, you can start with a lower model and work your way up. Originally, I wanted to use the 2013 iMac and the external GPUs to see if I could do some AI training. It looks like that has to wait for another video. So if you're interested to see the results of that, go ahead and subscribe and stay tuned.